Hi, my name is Bob Johnston. Welcome to Silver Hearth, and I'm glad you're here today. The objective is to take you on a tour of our facilities and show you around, give you a little bit of an insight as to why we do what we do and what we think that we do maybe differently than other wedding venues. The second objective for today is to help you acquire the tools that will actually help you select a wedding venue. There are a lot of wedding venues out there in the marketplace today, and they're all different, and they fit some people's needs and some they don't. But our venue is a purposeful venue. We only do weddings here, and so I think if I show you what we do here and why we do it, it will help you to better make a decision on which wedding venue to select. So I'll take you back to 2010, and I'll actually take you back further than that. I'll take you back to 1993. I bought this property, it's the very top of Bent Mountain, in '93, and there wasn't anything here except my little summer home. And I started building the property as though I wanted it just to be my summer home as I got older and up in my years. In 2010, after we had been building for 17 years, a bunch of my friends in South Carolina said, "Why don't you start doing weddings at your summer home up on Bent Mountain?" And I said, "Oh, that sounds good." And at the time, I had only been to 6 weddings in my whole life, 2 of which were mine. So needless to say, I didn't have a whole lot of experience in the wedding business, and I didn't have much knowledge about what it takes to do great weddings. So we opened in 2010. We made ourselves available to the general public, and that first year we did 9 weddings, and we thought that was great. Well, little did we know our humble facilities were lacking in so many ways. We had porta potties here, for example. Our groom's cabin at that time was a tent filled with beautiful leather furniture and Persian rugs, but it would leak every time we'd have rain come over the property, and so forth and so on. So we decided in 2010 to get serious about the wedding business. And so we put in a lot of effort and spent a lot of money, and we learned what wedding venues that are great do, and we also learned what wedding venues that aren't great need to do by going out and looking at other wedding venues. To date, I've looked at more than 70 wedding venues in the area, and I've analyzed them in detail, and I have learned a lot about the things to do and the things not to do that make a wedding venue great. And so as we tour the property today, I'll tell you a little bit about the things that make a wedding venue great, and I'll point them out to you. Well, so as we started looking at other wedding venues, we discovered about 4 things that really make Silver Hearth Lodge different than most other wedding venues. The first thing that we learned was that almost all of the wedding venues that I've looked at so far fall into the category of being a traditional big box wedding venue. And by big box, I mean it's one big white tent, or it's one big barn, or it's one big ballroom in a hotel, or it's one big reception hall in a country club, or one big lobby in a winery, but essentially it's one big box. And that's problematic because today the bride and the groom who can afford to have a nice wedding want something more than one big box. We've learned that for people who get married in the traditional big box, they're finding their guests reach a level of boredom after the cake is cut. They see that the venue is one big box. They're no longer stimulated. They're no longer excited. There are no longer any things to do at that big box, and so they leave and go home about 8 or 8:30. We also have found that today's bride wants something more than a big box so that she can express her creativity. And in the traditional big box, there's only typically 4 corners. One corner you might set up your gift table and your guest book table. Another corner you might set up your bar. Another corner you might set up the food and the catering. And then the other 4th corner you set up your ceremony, and that's the extent of the expression of creativity that you're going to have in the traditional big box. Out here at Silver Hearth, we have a big box venue, but our big box is a 40-acre big box. It's the entire top of a mountain. And inside of our big box are little facilities. So for example, over here to my left is the Treetops Terrace, which is essentially a facility that has a huge tree growing out of the center of it that's all lit up. It looks just like something that you'd read about in the Bible when it's lit up at nighttime. Great place for cocktail hour, for example. Down the lawn just a little bit is a place called the Overlook Pavilion. That's been used for everything from a beer garden and a disco to a place where a bride and groom got married, and one bride and groom from Chicago did their first dances down there with the photographer shooting the mountains in the background as their backdrop. Another little facility that's quite popular is our domed wrought iron gazebo. That gazebo was made in Egypt. It was all handmade in 1890. The lights on either side of it were made in France in 1870, and it's where most of our brides get married here at Silver Hearth Lodge. There's a lawn games court that's contiguous to the domed wrought iron gazebo that people use all afternoon to play horseshoes or beanbag toss or whatever. Off to the east is a facility known as our tree garden. It's our glamping compound. We have our first Ralph Lauren glamping cabin in there. It's an overnight accommodation. Also to the east of that is the Sacred Heart Chapel. It's Virginia's smallest church. We have that in case our brides want to have a religious or a spiritual ceremony as opposed to a nature ceremony. At the very end of our reception hall, which is known as Vista View Hall, we have the Native American fire circle. It's a true replica of what the Cherokee and Apache Indians used in their day. They used them for 3 reasons. They used it as their center of government, their center of worship, and their center of celebration. We use it as a center of celebration, and it is a celebration to behold when that fire gets kicked in at nighttime. We have a lot of facilities here, and needless to say, the facilities are here to allow our brides to create whatever dream day wedding they want to create. And so you see the difference in Silver Hearth. We're really a wedding campus that's comprised of many little facilities that our brides and grooms can use, as opposed to the traditional big box, which is one big box that really stifles your creativity. Well, that's the first difference that we've learned about wedding venues, comparing Silver Hearth Lodge to other wedding venues. The second thing we've learned, and I think this will help you just as much to select a wedding venue, is that most wedding venues will tell you that they're a wedding venue when they're not at all a wedding venue. They're a hotel that does weddings on the side, or they're a winery that does weddings on the side, or they're a events venue that does weddings on the side, as well as corporate outings and Boy Scout outings and anniversary parties and birthday celebrations. Well, comparing to Silver Hearth Lodge, We only do weddings here, and we're real pros at it. And if you don't believe that, you can go on our Facebook page and look at some of our reviews, or go to some of the wedding websites and look at some of our reviews. I think you'll see that we are real professionals at hosting weddings on the top of a mountain. The third difference that we learned when looking at other wedding venues is that people who purport to be wedding venues tell you that you can do your dream day wedding there, except after you sign the rental agreement and give them the deposit, it's not going to be your dream day wedding at all. It will be theirs. They're going to tell you that you have to use their caterer. They're going to tell you that you can't bring your own alcohol. They're going to tell you that you must have an ABC license, or that you must turn the music down by 10 o'clock because of the noise ordinance, and the list goes on and on and on. Well, the difference is at Silver Hearth Lodge, you really can have your dream day wedding here. If you tell us that your dream day wedding involves being married up on the roof of our reception hall, that's something that we're going to do. If you tell us that you want to have a music festival up here as part of your reception, that's something that we're going to do. And so that's probably the third difference in us versus the majority of wedding venues out there. I think the last thing that I've discovered, and it's a very benign difference, but a difference certainly, is that Silver Hearth Lodge is a wedding venue that does this as a hobby. We are very serious about our hobby, but we don't do this because we need to get every last dollar in here to pay the bills. We do it because it's something that we love to do and we enjoy it immensely. You probably have run into the consummate salesman who's selling you on whatever it is, a used car or some product or service, and he or she is selling, and you know that they're not telling the truth. And what you discover later is, if you end up with that product, that they oversold and underperformed. Well, that's what many a wedding venue does today, because they need your money. We don't oversell, we do overperform. And we do because we are in this business as a hobby, and we are very passionate about our hobby. You don't have to believe me. You can look at our reviews on Facebook or on some of the other wedding websites. Well, those are essentially the four differences, us as a wedding venue, Silver Hearth Lodge, versus the other traditional big box wedding venues. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to take you on a tour of the property and show you some of our facilities. So as we walk out of our big reception hall, we call it a big red barn-inspired venue. It's called Vista View Hall. We look at the first and our newest facility, which is known as Treetops Terrace. Well, you can see the big tree coming up through the facility itself, and the tree has huge uplighting in it. People tell us that they can see this tree when it's lit up at nighttime all the way out to the Roanoke Airport, which is about 14 miles away. It's a great place to just sit and chill out. There's a set of binoculars up here that you can use. It's got views that go on and on and on for as far as the eye can see. And it's a place to be a part of a wedding and yet be away from all the activity if you want a little bit of away time. Very popular, very comfortable, and a place that you'll find quite enjoyable if you hang out at this facility known as Treetops Terrace. If you look down the lawn just a little bit, there's some school swings off to the left that people love to enjoy. They tell me on a regular basis that when they're on the school swings, they feel like they're flying. And of course they would, because every time they swing out, it feels like they're going to fall off the edge of the mountain, and yet they're very safe on our school swings. But beside it is one of our first facilities that came to the top of this mountain, known as the Overlook Pavilion. The Overlook Pavilion, if you notice it, it's made with a lot of wood from the property, indigenous trees and boards and bench backs all came from this property. As we were clearing the property, we turned these wood products into tables and benches and chairs and uprights holding the building up. Well, this is a facility that has many purposes, just like every other facility. We've had people get married here. We've had all kinds of activities down here. Most of the time, this is a facility that the bride and groom either don't use for a specific purpose. That is to say, their guests come down here with a plate of food or a cocktail and just enjoy themselves. Maybe they'll smoke a cigar, maybe they'll have a glass of bourbon with their cigar, or the bride and the groom will come down here and they will turn this into a place where they have their cocktail hour. So after the bride and the groom get married, they take off for pictures and their guests come down here and do a big cocktail hour with appetizers and hors d'oeuvres and beverages. Great place, very scenic. If you stand out on the very edge or you sit in one of these big teak wood rocking chairs, you will feel like you're on the edge of the world. And I promise you, the longer you sit here, the better your life will become. It's just one of those places. Well, after we leave the Overlook Pavilion, we're going to walk up the lawn to one of my favorite spots. It's certainly where most brides and grooms prefer to get married. And it's called the Domed Wrought Iron Gazebo. And I mentioned it's a structure that was built all handmade. We had it brought over on a ship and installed it here. The views are incredible during the daytime, and then at nighttime, all of the forest that is in the distance just across the lawn here is all backlit and uplit. So you can actually get married in the daytime during the light hours or at nighttime with all the uplighting in the trees and all of the beautiful flora and fauna being accented with our lighting. This domed wrought iron gazebo works so well. It was intentionally put here because of the shade that is in place in the summertime, which is just so welcomed. There's a bandstand that's part of the domed wrought iron gazebo seating area that we've seen everything from a string quartet to spiritual and poetry readings occur on this bandstand. But I think the thing that people like the most is their guests, when they attend the ceremony, have this endless view of just the mountaintops for more than 50 miles going all the way into West Virginia to look at as part of the entire ceremony, and it just makes for a beautiful, beautiful setting. Bear in mind, if you come to Silver Hearth Lodge to get married, there are many, many, many corners at this campus. That is to say, you don't just have to get married at the domed wrought iron gazebo. You can get married at the Overlook Pavilion. You can get married at our little church. You can get married at the Native American Fire Circle. You can get married in the middle of the lawn. There are endless opportunities to get married here, and certainly endless opportunities for photography for your dream day wedding. Well, let me take you a little further on a tour. We have overnight accommodations here at the moment for only 2 couples. One of the overnight accommodations is in the Bridal Suite, which I'll show you in a minute. And the other overnight accommodation is in our Ralph Lauren inspired glamping cabin. Our glamping cabin is something that people enjoy seeing because it is truly glamorous camping, and that's an acronym for glamping. Ralph Lauren Glamping Cabin is a place where you can be overnight at Silver Hearth Lodge, and people enjoy coming to this glamping cabin the last day that they're single, getting married on the top of the mountain, and then staying overnight and waking up the first day that they're married on the top of the mountain. So that's why we have overnight accommodations here, is to accommodate the bride and the groom, or as the glamping cabin may be, for her parents or for her best friend or for her family members or such. The next facility that we have that's close by is called the Sacred Heart Chapel. If you'll notice, there's a red heart that surrounds the Sacred Heart patio. The Sacred Heart patio is where we set up our chairs for a wedding ceremony, and our church doors open in the front so that the bride and the groom, when they're ready to say their vows, step inside the church, and they actually and officially and formally get married inside a church. And while that's not all that appealing to a large market today, it is appealing to a certain segment of the market who says they want to have a religious wedding. If you look at Virginia's smallest church, it has a Michelangelo fresco ceiling. It has a Christian cross on the floor. It has a bandstand for the music source, and it has a lot of features inside the church that are very meaningful to those who want a spiritual wedding. If you want to see Virginia's smallest church and you attend a wedding here at nighttime, the lights are on and the doors are open, and if you come to Silver Hearth Lodge any night that we're not having a wedding, the only light that will be on is our burning bush, which is beneath our sign that talks about the church and the details of our church. Well, let's take a little journey over to the Native American Fire Circle now. So our Native American Fire Circle is a true replica of that which the Indians and the Native Americans used in their day. Most of the Native American Fire Circle is built from the spoils of the property. The rocks are from the property, the chairs and benches and tables are from the spoils of the property, and even the directional signs, a portion of those are from the spoils of the property. We have a fire pit here that is to die for. Somebody told me one day that we could probably get a Volkswagen Beetle inside of our fire pit, and that's probably true. Nevertheless, this is a great place for social gatherings during a wedding. It's a great place for toasts and speeches. It's also a great place if you decide that you want to have a s'mores bar, bringing on your favorite collection of marshmallows and chocolates and graham crackers. We'll provide the skewers and we'll provide all the fire and the firewood. All you have to do is bring the people, and it'll be a memorable event. Well, after we leave our Native American Fire Circle, we're going to walk inside our big red barn known as Vista View Hall. Now, Vista View Hall has a lot of parts and pieces to it, so I'll try to kind of take them one piece at a time. It's typically where we do our reception events, and we can accommodate up to 300 people inside Vista View Hall. There are some parts of Vista View Hall, though, that I'd like to show you, in addition to where all the reception takes place. One place that seems quite popular is our area called the Love Works Lounge. It has the LOVE on the wall that is part of Virginia's push for for tourism. So yes, this is a reception hall, much like any events facility that can accommodate almost anything that you need, and yet it's just designed for weddings. Another part of Vista View Hall is our concrete and our wooden dance floor. We have a huge dance floor here, and part of it is concrete and then part of it is wooden. The area to dance is endless. If you want it bigger, we can push the tables back, and if you want it smaller, we can push the tables closer to the dance floor. But we have a dance floor that will accommodate people for weddings as large as 300 attending. We have a great collection and selection of dance lights that come with Vista View Hall's dance floor. It has meteor lights in the ceiling. It has a laser that is very active on the back wall. It has a crystal ball if you want to have a slow dance. And then it's got all kinds of dance lights if you want to really get the party started. Also, big fans are everywhere on the dance floor, so if you get hot, we can turn on the fans for you. It's a great facility. Right beside the dance floor, though, is our DJ rig. If you notice, the DJ rig is elevated a little bit. The DJ can see who's needing a little more prompting and who might need to have the music turned up a little bit more. Behind him is one of our signature pieces of furniture here, and it's a flaming piano. This is a 1940 mahogany player piano that still plays, but it's actually a flamethrower. And the reason we have this flaming piano is because our brides who get married here really enjoy cooking s'mores. Also, as part of Vista View Hall, we have a bridal suite that our brides tell us they love. I'll walk you inside and show you our bridal suite. It is of Victorian theme. We have a canopy bed. We have antique furniture. We have a lot of French-inspired furniture in here. But this bridal suite really works well for our brides. It has everything in here from TV to stereo to, just in this one area, 14 outlets just for hair dryers. If you don't have enough outlets for hair dryers in this kidney-shaped desk area, you can go into our hair salon, which is a part of the bridal suite as well, and there's just as many outlets in the hair salon, and there's a shower, and there's a sink, and there's a private toilet, and it's a place where you can look into the big floor-length mirrors and get ready for your dream day wedding. Also, as part of the bridal suite, we have an observation deck. And our observation deck essentially is an area that is disguised from all who would like to see the bride. It's disguised by a drapery-covered wall. The bride can stand behind the draped wall and look out and see everything that's going on, but nobody can see her. And so, consequently, she can manage her wedding from behind the curtain, making sure that the tables are set up exactly the way she wants them, making sure that the minister or the officiant is in place, making sure that the DJ is ready to go. Nobody can see her, and yet she can see everybody and be certain that her wedding is going to be flawless as she had envisioned it. Well, this is our bridal suite, and it's one that people love, love, love. It also is one of the two places where you can spend the night at Silver Hearth Lodge As I mentioned previously, you can stay in here in the Bridal Suite, or you can stay in our Ralph Lauren-inspired glamping cabin. Well, let me take you a little bit further into Vista View Hall and show you a couple more things. We have an area just for our caterers and our guests to participate in grand buffets. We have 2 big plank tables that will allow 100 or 200 or 300 people to go through and get their food with no congestion and with no real delay. One of the things that angers people who attend wedding venues that aren't really wedding venues is that they have to wait so long for their food. Well, we have a well-designed buffet area where we can put 2 lines of people through the buffet area, and whether it's 100 or 200 or 300 people, they'll get their food without delay, and consequently everything will run on time. There won't be any bottlenecks in the food service area. Also in the food service area, we have Horizons Cafe, which is our Starbucks featured coffee bar. This is a very popular trend today because people want to have coffee if there's a lot of alcohol flowing. If you are a spring or a fall bride and there's a little chill in the air, you may want to have hot coffee for your guests. If you've got a lot of older folks attending your wedding, they may want coffee to go with their dessert or with their wedding cake. And then, of course, coffee just helps keep the energy level up for your party, which might start to get a little sleepy when 8:30 or 9 or 10 o'clock rolls around. If you have a coffee bar, your party will keep on going until you decide that you want the party to end. Well, also as part of our Vista View Hall, we have a grand area for cake cutting. This is an area that has a dome over the top of it that's got a wedding cake chandelier hanging from the center, and it has beautiful, beautiful, beautiful facilities that make it a wedding cake cutting area. It has ropes to keep people out of your cake until you decide to cut the cake. It has little crystal chandeliers on the wall to help light up the cake cutting area. And I think most of all, it has the mountain and nature view in the background because of the big plate glass window right behind the cake cutting area. Beside our cake cutting area is our appetizer and dessert bar area. We have 2 big pecan slabs that are sitting on top of wine barrels, and we even have a Cinderella carriage that we can utilize as part of that display to help make your dessert bar or your appetizer bar a grand display for your wedding. Well, beside our display area for appetizers and desserts is our Cantina Bar. If you'll notice, the sign on the front of the bar says, Bent Mountain's only thirst aid station. And that it is. This Cantina Bar was designed to accommodate 100 or 200 or 300 people in a very efficient manner. Our Cantina Bar was set up with big clawfoot tubs on either side of the bar to help alleviate a long line of people backed up for a cocktail or a cold bottle of beer. We also have the back side of our Cantina Bar and with an awning that opens and closes, so that if people want an outdoor-indoor bar, we can accommodate that simply by raising this back bar awning so people can get served who are outdoors and people can get served who are indoors. That's an important feature here because one of the two things that angers guests the most at a wedding reception is having to wait for their food, and more so having to wait for their drinks. Well, we don't find people having to wait for their drinks very often here, only because we've got a well-designed Cantina Bar. Now, just to the left of the Cantina Bar is a place where I'm sitting right now called the Club Lounge. And we call it the Club Lounge because it's kind of clubby. It's got big leather pieces of Ralph Lauren furniture, and it's got big vintage antique rocking chairs, and it has big screen TVs, and it even has a fireplace here. This is the place where you'll find your parents and my parents hanging out because they like the comfort of this area, and yet they're still close enough to the bar, and they're close enough to the music and the dancing and the food, and yet they're not too far away so that when something occurs that demands their attention, they can be there very quickly and without any delay. I think I'll take you outside and show you a couple more things that are highlights here at Silver Hearth Lodge. As we walk out of Vista View Hall, we see to our left here a facility known as Wood Ridge for Kids. It's for two-legged kids, and we have this playground because children need something to do when they attend a wedding here as well. We found that before we put in this playground for kids, that oftentimes they would get themselves in trouble. Maybe they would go in an area where they were subject to a cut or a scrape or a serious bruise, or they might even be getting themselves in trouble with some of the creatures that live out in the forest. Well, the playground is an area where they thoroughly have their own space, and yet it's still close to the venue where the parents can keep an eye on them. If you have four-legged kids, we have right back here a facility called the Kennel Club. We have two little cabins. They're tin roof cabins with water and food bowls and carpeted floors and really nice facilities. Today, people may not have two-legged kids. They might have four-legged kids, and so we want them to be a part of the wedding celebration. And so the Kennel Club accomplishes that. It has special lighting back here for them. It has a dog run if they want to just kind of exercise a little bit. We have stations for them to use the bathroom, and they can be you can pick up the dog litter with little bags and so forth. And we are pet friendly on every level. Then one of the last things I'll talk to you about today is the groom's cabin. It's called the Sugar Camp. We call it the Sugar Camp because one of our brides told us one day that that was where her sugar was hanging out. The Sugar Camp's a little more masculine. It's got big leather furniture, pieces of furniture in it. It's got hardwood floors in it. It's got heating and air conditioning and a big screen TV. And it's a place where the grooms can really enjoy themselves when they're getting ready for the wedding here, and yet have a place that's a little more befitting for the guys than it would be for the girls. That's kind of the end of my tour. There's so much more that I can share with you about Silver Hearth, but I'll close by telling you that Silver Hearth Lodge is a very, very different kind of a wedding venue. It's very different because we only do weddings here, and we are real pros at what we do. It's no coincidence that our parking is designed just for weddings. It's no coincidence You'll see tissue boxes all over the place, or you'll see fans on the dance floor, or you'll see coat hooks in strategic locations. It's no coincidence that you'll see a whole collection of bobby pins and safety pins and hairpins and hemming pins and floral pins. It's no coincidence that you'll see a whole collection of things in one area that you might have forgotten to bring with you, like cake cutting utensils or to-go boxes that might be something that helps you get your cake and cupcakes home at the end of the day. I will tell you this, and I'll leave you with this little summary though. A very good friend of mine told me one day that the only way he could describe Silver Hearth Lodge was that it was let me think about this a minute. He told me that it was an adult Disney World for weddings. It was a campus unlike any other place that he's ever seen. And so I'll let you decide that for yourself, but on this little tour, at least you got some idea of what separates us. I'll hope that we helped you in some way today to understand the difference between our wedding venue here and all of the other wedding venues out there in the marketplace. The last thing I'll tell you is that Silver Hearth Lodge is the only private mountaintop wedding venue in the entire southeastern United States. People come in from all over the world and all over the country to get married here. So if you're looking for a unique wedding venue, one that will make your day a wow day, maybe this is the place for you. My name's Bob Johnston, and if I can be of any help to you with this wedding venue or any wedding venue, I'll be more than glad to do so. Thanks for taking the tour with me, and I hope I see you up on the very top of Bent Mountain at Silver Hearth Lodge, at least for a tour and maybe for your dream day wedding. Take care and have a great day.